here this evening for our financial plan open house. We are going to be going through our PowerPoint and a couple of other documents, but once the meeting is over, the recording of the meeting will be available to view on our website. So if anybody doesn't remember something or wants to double check, it'll be on the website for everyone to see. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to turn it over to our administrator to walk us through the 2026 financial plan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On top of that, this current PowerPoint is available on our meeting agenda as well as of now. So it will be available for the remainder of the year. So welcome everyone. Apologize, I've got a bit of a cold, so if I begin to mumble, I apologize. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight, we're going to walk through the Arma St. Clement's 2026 financial plan, where your tax dollars come from, where they go, and what they are building for our community's future. We'll cover operating and capital budgets, infrastructure projects, debt management, and how we compare to neighboring municipalities. So let's start with the big picture. This slide gives you the big picture. Your total property tax levy, the combined municipal and education portion, is $46.77 million, remaining stable year over year to limit taxable volatility. Thank you. Even though the education levy has increased by $1.54 million. The general operating fund of approximately $28.99 million funds everything from road maintenance to emergency services to community programs. Any increase in the total levy is driven mainly by rising school division requisitions, not new municipal spending. Our general municipal mill rate moves from 9.1 to just 9.2 mills. That's a 1% increase, which, as identified last year by council, is dedicated entirely to our 10-year hard surface road plan. So that was a 10-year road plan to put 1% per year to get to a total of 2 mills to devote to our hard surface roads. The entire plan is built on fiscal responsibility, sustainability, aligning spending with strategic goals so we can count on predictable, fair taxation. So let's look at how we're diversifying revenues to support this. We've been diversifying our revenue sources so we're not overly reliant on property taxes alone. That means user fees, grants, service charges, and other streams that could be more resilient financial foundation. One specific change, we're increasing landfill tipping fees to bring in approximately $750,000, ensuring users of the landfill pay their fair share rather than shifting the costs onto the general tax base. Like everyone, the municipality is feeling inflationary pressures. Fuel, materials, utilities, contracted services all cost more. By optimizing user fees and finding new revenue, we absorb rising costs without passing them directly to your property tax bill. A diversified revenue plan gives us budget flexibility and supports mill rate stability while maintaining essential services. Next, we'll look at the executive summary for 2026. So, well, here are the headline numbers. Our proposed 2026 operating and capital budget comes to $28.99 million, covering every service you interact with. Municipal taxes and grants in lieu total $10.96 million. The total mill rate sits at just 1% above last year, with that is a modest increase earmarked entirely for hard surface roads, meaning the municipality has kept the budget exactly the same as it was for last year, which was a 13% reduction from the year before. We are also bringing in $18.03 million in other revenues and grants, money from sources other than your property taxes. Every grant dollar we secure is a dollar we don't have to ask for. In summary, a responsible budget, significant investment in our community's future, and a commitment to keeping costs manageable. Let me show you how this breaks down between day-to-day operations and long-term capital. Our spending falls into two categories: the operating budget, which is at $10.96 million, which is the identification that we need to run our services, which keeps the RM running day to day. for road crews, fire and emergency service, permits, administration, general upkeep. The capital budget, 15.71 million, bills the RM's future through major infrastructure, facility construction, and acquisition of heavy equipment. The key takeaways is balance. We need to maintain what we have today while building for tomorrow. Council has worked to ensure neither side is neglected. Let's now look at the financial plan, delivery of services. So everything we do is governed by this financial plan. It funds daily services while investing in multi-generational community assets through capital projects. On the operating side, core services like public works, emergency response, and administration. Then ongoing maintenance, like the upkeep of infrastructure, equipment, and facilities that prevent small problems from becoming expensive ones. And capital investment. That's major new infrastructure, facility construction, and large equipment purchases that position our community for the future. We lay this out for transparency, so you understand exactly where your tax dollars go. Now let me break it down for the operating fund specifically. Infrastructure and protective services are the biggest piece. Roads and spring restrictions management, dust control, grading, regional drainage and culverts, fire and emergency services, bylaw enforcement, and animal control and flood protection readiness. Environmental and utilities cover garbage, recycling, the Lebo landfill, water and sewer operations, weed control, Dutch elm disease management, community and recreation, including trail networks, east beaches, heritage preservation, the St. Clement's Activity Center, the community grants and development. Every one of these services directly benefits you and your neighbors. Next, we'll take a look at the capital investments. This table breaks down our 2026 capital investments by sector. Roads lead at 3.8 million for a 10-year hard surface road plan, funded through reserves and grants along with safety improvements in East Selkirk. Utilities received 2.8 million for this South St. Clement's Reservoir and Wellfield, funded by borrowing and utility rates. Waste Management receives 2 million for the Lebo landfill cell, cell 3 for environmental compliance from municipal reserves. Recreation gets 1.42 million for phase 1 of the St. Clement's facility or the recreation through borrowing and grants. Each investment has a clear funding strategy. None are surprises. Let me give you the bigger picture of the overall capital plan. Our 2026 capital budget totals 17.7 million, higher than previous years because we're in an active building phase with roads, recreation, water, infrastructure, all advancing simultaneously. The key figure, 15.3 million, comes from municipal reserves, significantly reducing our need for borrowing. We do have 12.5 million in new borrowing for key projects, but as you'll see shortly, our debt position is strong with significant capacity remaining. There's also 201,000 operating contribution bridging the gap. Investment is concentrated in public works, fire services upgrades, environmental and landfill projects. This brings us to our major project pillars. Our 4 major pillars drive our capital program. First, the hard surface road capital road plan, year 2 of our expanded 10-year program, a dedicated 1 mil increase. Second, utilities and infrastructure bylaw 10 of 2025 covers the South St. Clement's Reservoir and Wellfield and the river pipeline crossing. Bylaw 9 of 2025 funds water control and drainage, and bylaw 6 of 2025 supports road remediation. Third, environment and waste. Bylaw 8 of 2025 funds the Lebo landfill expansion. Fourth is for recreation, which is bylaw 7 of 2025, which supports the St. Clement's recreation facility. Each pillar has its own bylaw, funding strategy, and timeline, all structured to move forward together. In the next few slides, we'll take a closer look at each of these investment areas. Reliable water and responsible waste management are fundamental. On the water side, we're focused on the South St. Clement's utility reservoir, Wellfield and River Pipeline Crossing, securing water supply as the community grows. The 2026 milestones is completing the water reservoir and established service sharing arrangements with the other municipalities. On waste management, the strategic focus is the Lebo landfill, extending its lifespan, ensuring environmental compliance, and safe waste isolation. The 2026 milestone is achieving environmental compliance and beginning the South 3 expansion. Both investments are thinking decades ahead. Now let's look at all the roads and drainage and infrastructure that affects most of our municipality. We're in year 2 of our expanded 10-year hard surface road capital plan. In 2026, we're targeting 5 kilometers of comprehensive road remediation along with hard surface road reconstruction of Rebec Road from Donald to Ludwig. This proactive investment prevents long-term infrastructure degrading, mitigates spring road restriction impacts, and secures vital flood protection for all residents. The predictable funding through the dedicated mill rates means we can plan ahead, negotiate better contracts, and deliver better results. Next, let's talk about the projects that many of you may have been following closely, like the St. Clements Recreation Facility. The St. Clements Recreation Facility is one of the most significant community investments in our municipality's recent history. In 2026, milestones is construction completion and occupancy, and was just informed this week that the occupancy permits have been granted. This building will be open and serving residents. The facility represents council's commitment to quality of life, building the kind of community where people want to put down roots. And now let's shift to a detailed look at how the expenditures are distributed across services. So the chart breaks down our 2026 expenditures by service area. The funding, and I'll show it in a couple of different ways so we can get a better understanding of this. The funding comes from multiple sources: municipal taxes, provincial and federal grants, service fees, transfers from surpluses, and draws from reserves. Each slice represents a service that directly affects your quality of life. Notice how balanced the spending is. We're not pouring everything into one area at the expense of others. Every department has been carefully budgeted to deliver the services you expect while staying within our means. The next slide shows our same expenditures in another fashion. This brings the same breakdown to a personal level, calculated on a total assessed value based on 2021 census numbers of average house of $382,800, portioned at 45%. This shows how individual tax dollars are allocated across those services that you receive. So what you'll see is the budgeted amount, the percent total, and then what that would turn into a tax dollar if you were breaking it down by your yearly taxes. When you look at these numbers, I think you'll agree, you're getting strong value: road maintenance, emergency response, waste collection, water and sewer, recreation, and more, all for a reasonable annual amount. Now let's look at the broader picture of how these taxes and municipal revenues are distributed. This slide shows two views: the distribution of taxes collected and total municipal revenue. Of all the property taxes collected, 60% goes to school taxes and only 40% stays with the municipality. Total revenue comes from municipal taxes, grants, service fees, and transfers from surpluses and reserves. This diversification is deliberate. It protects you from sudden tax increases. The diversification I'm talking about is not the 40-60. Diversification is the slide on the right side, which is the total municipal revenue. An important note for homeowners: residents will continue to receive that $1,600 school tax rebate directly from the province for primary residences. So let's dig a little deeper into the municipal side of this thing. So only 40% of your total tax bill is directly managed by the RM for local operations, capital projects, and safety. The other 60% goes to education taxes set by school divisions and the province. The Schedule A breakdown shows school taxes are roughly 16.5 million versus municipal taxes at about almost 11 million. Excuse me. Education levies now 60%. Last year it was 58%. The year before it was even less. Have increased across all school divisions in 2026, directly affecting your tax bill, independent of what we do municipally. And because of that, and these higher education taxes also reduce the flexibility to maintain services without raising other taxes. Residents will receive the $1,600 school tax rebate from the province, but it's only for your one primary residence, and that's all it covers. And I need this to be clearly understood that council made the decision to keep the taxes at the mill rate at a 0% increase in order to not have a negative impact due to the school board tax increase, to minimize the impact on our residents. So keeping costs affordable is a top strategic priority. Oops. There we go. Thank you. Keeping costs affordable also means managing day-to-day finances responsibly. This chart shows our progress in fiscal and cash flow management starting in 2020. Just so everyone knows, in the past, since 2020, we have stayed above the line, but we've had to, in the past, had to rely on the line of credit in the past, which is no longer the case anymore. So it also means managing day-to-day funds. The chart shows our progress in fiscal and cash flow management. Starting in 2020, the RM worked to eliminate interest expenses from operating the line of credit. And you can see continued progress in reducing short-term borrowing costs alongside steady cash balances stabilization. Every dollar saved on interest goes directly towards services. It's the kind of disciplined management that builds strong long-term stability and gives council flexibility to respond to challenges without raising taxes. With that fiscal discipline in place, let's turn our position to the current debt position. So provincial policy sets out benchmarks. It says debt cannot exceed 7% of the total assessment for a municipality. An annual payment cannot exceed, and then the annual payment. So imagine debt being your assets. You can't borrow more than what you're capable of for your assets, and then the payment is dependent based on your income. So which would be the revenues, and it cannot exceed 20% of your revenues. In our 2026 budget, we have improved than we did in 2025 because of growth as well as revenues that have been coming in. So we're at 4.57% of debt capacity remains, which is over $53 million in available borrowing for the future. On a payment capacity, we have 12% remains available. That means over 3.6 million in additional annual payments. So that's your monthly or yearly payments that you'd be making. So this shows that the RM continues to be in a sound financial position well within both ceilings, and that council is borrowing strategically and only when necessary, keeping plenty of headroom for an unexpected needs. And there's no intention of going, and I need this to be made very clear. Most large municipalities hit their debt ceiling yearly. We are nowhere near hitting our debt ceiling. Not all debt payments come from your general tax bill. In fact, a majority don't. General taxation accounts for only 37% of the total debt payments. Local improvement districts levies, which are directly related to those people benefiting from those local improvements, it covers 18%, tied to specific infrastructure projects benefiting only those properties. The balance comes from gas tax grants and utility rates for water and wastewater infrastructure, so the users pay. The council has been deliberate about structuring debt so repayment is shared fairly and doesn't fall disproportionately on your property tax bill. So let's take a look at the broader picture. So we use specialized levies like local improvement districts for specific infrastructure projects. Repayment costs are spread among properties that directly benefit, ensuring targeted, fair funding. These levies are adjusted annually based on assessed property values, so the burden is recalculated fairly as values change. Our 2026 debentures include road renewals, the South St. Clements Community Building, the Narrow Fire Station, the drainage projects, all essential infrastructures with defined levy amounts that went through the public process. The overarching principle is we borrow only when we must, and we're transparent about every dollar. Let's look at the different methods to finance. Excuse me. There are 4 funding methods we use strategically. Cash on hand from reserves, so there's no added tax burden, and then there's no interest costs. Short-term loans as temporary bridge funding during construction. Grants that directly reduce the final borrowing amount. And then and long-term borrowing that spreads the cost of lasting assets across current and future beneficiaries, much like a mortgage. We layer these methods to minimize borrowing and interest costs. Every project funding strategy is designed before it begins, not figured out afterwards. Now let's look at the revenue picture. So this is directly from our financial plan. The detailed breakdown shows where our revenues come from. Property taxes remain the largest source, but you'll also see contributions from user fees, grants, transfers from reserves, and service charges. Grant revenue is particularly noteworthy. Every dollar from senior government is a dollar we don't need to collect from taxes. This document is publicly available on our website, and we're happy to answer any questions about any specific category, and you can send an email or phone the office. Now let's look at the expenditures. As I've already presented the expenditures in the breakdown, this is the expenditures as per the budget, and you'll see compared to 25 to 26 to 27, and council also plans for 2028. So its council has established a methodology to plan for 3 years in advance, and but the other ones are adopted in principle when the actual budget is the 2026 budget. But you get a general idea of what we're looking to reduce or manage as we move forward. And this shows exactly how every dollar is allocated across our operations. The largest portions go to the services that affect the most directly: road maintenance, emergency response, and infrastructure upkeep. Administrative costs are kept lean, so as much of your tax dollar as possible goes to frontline services. Every number here is part of the public record. These are also individual projects and equipment purchases in our 2026 capital program. Many are funded through reserve funds, avoiding borrowing costs and interests. Items that involve borrowing have all been put forward through the public hearing process and giving residents the opportunity to review and provide input. Each item represents an investment in the long-term health of our municipality. Heavy equipment, facility improvements, infrastructure upgrades. And the next slide also covers many of these. This continues our capital items overview, but the funding sources vary in this case: reserve, grants, and borrowing repaid over a useful life of the asset. None of these are impulsive decisions. They've all been part of the long-term capital planning reviewed by council, and where borrowing is involved, presented at public hearing. Now let's talk about the specific strategies to minimize the tax burden. 3 concrete strategies minimize your tax burden. First, aggressive grant procurement. Our 2026 target is $10 million in grants for the municipality, which is $10 million that doesn't come from property taxes. Second, regional service sharing and partnerships like the Red River Planning District to reduce administrative overheads. Third, strategic reserve management. Paying for projects upfront avoids long-term interest costs. These strategies work together to keep our costs as low as possible while delivering the infrastructure you deserve. Excuse me. Now let's compare 25 to 26. This table compares 2025 under bylaw 4 of 2025, which was the financial plan last year, with the 2026 under bylaw 2 of 2026, which is the current financial plan. Education mill rates rise roughly 11 to 12.6 mills to 12.78 to 13.89 mills. So you can imagine each point mill is a percent. And so what you're seeing is 11 to go into 12.78 is 17.8% increase. Okay, education mill rates rise roughly, as I just showed, a meaningful increase set by the school divisions, not by us. Our municipal mill rate moves from 9.1 to 9.2, essentially zero, because the 1% is going directly towards roads. The road reserve levy goes from 1.1 to 1.2 this year. The next step in our 10-year road plan commitment. Capital expenditures are up from 13.5 million to 17.6 million, reflecting multiple major projects underway. The total project property tax levy has moved from 44.3 million to 46.77 million. The majority of that increase is driven by rising education levies, not new municipal spending. Council has held the line with only the 1% municipal adjustment. So let's take a closer look at this tax situation specifically. Education levies have increased across all school divisions significantly for the second year in a row, driving significant changes in the 2026 tax framework. These increases affect your total tax bill directly and are completely independent of our municipal budget. We don't control them. Higher education taxes also reduce our flexibility as a municipality. When a bigger share goes to education, there's less room for us to maintain services and infrastructure without it feeling like overall taxes are going up. Clear communication and advocacy with the province are essential to promote balanced education funding and taxpayer affordability. So let me summarize the key highlights of our entire financial plan. In 2026, Council continues reducing infrastructure risk through long-term planning. We now have 1.2 mil rates dedicated to roads, generating $1,392,873.90 annually, with an additional 0.1 mil per year over the next 10 years, building towards a total of 2 mils. We're stabilizing reserves for capital projects, improving cash flow management, and implementing a 1% mill rate for 2026 to provide budgeting predictability. We're increasing recreation support through reserves, completing the activity center, and committing to a boat launch for 2026. Business community support continues at $50,000 for biz improvement zones, which is matched. So they match where the municipality matches the investment directly from the businesses, plus community and volunteer grants. On infrastructure, next phase regional water and wastewater projects, landfill expansion and a new cell construction, stabilized fire and public works, fleet capital, and an increased budget for dust control, gravel roads, grass cutting, drainage, brushing, and ditching. All of this paints a picture of a municipality planning ahead and investing wisely. So I want to thank you for your time and attention this evening. We're committed to financial transparency, responsible stewardship, and building a community that works for everyone. If you have questions about anything we've covered, a specific project or a budget line item, or how your tax bill is calculated, we're here to answer them. This is your community and your money, and we take the responsibility seriously. Thank you.
Okay, so having said that, Deepak has gone through the financial plan and thrown quite a few figures out there. So if there are any questions, please raise your hand and I will see who's out there and you can ask your question. Do you want to come to the podium if you don't mind, just so we can hear a little bit better? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin Clark. I'm a resident in North Ward. Just curious, out of all the numbers you've played out there tonight. There's a lot there. There's not a lot of us are permanent residents in the North Ward, but there's a number. And I'm just wondering if there is any data that you have that shows how the budget is broken out between the two wards?
How the budget is broken out between the two wards.
How the money is split and how the balance is between the disbursement of expenses in the North Ward versus the South Ward, the revenues coming in from the North Ward, the revenues coming in from the South Ward. Do you have that data to share?
Not directly available. It takes a little bit more time to sort of do that level of analysis. As an example, we have a gravel road budget, but gravel roads are existent throughout the entire municipality. Definitely Ward 2 has all gravel roads, but Ward 2 also has asphalt roads, just like there are in the south. So we have a hard road surface, like East Selkirk is part of Ward 2, so which is the north part. So we have two wards. Ward 2 is from Highway 44 north, and Ward 1 is from Highway 44 south. And that's mainly distribution through population as per provincial and federal legislation as to how the ward system has to keep the population equal for both sides.
So what you're saying is you don't actually track your budget based on the wards?
Not directly.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Come up to the podium, please, if you don't mind.
Hi, I'm Lena Kudlik. I'm a resident of St. Clements. I'm also the chair of the Board of Trustees for the Lord Selkirk School Division. And I am not, I'm not here to debate any of your numbers. I do feel compelled to provide a little bit of information. Historically, if we look back into the late 70s and early 80s, if you looked at the provincial source of funding versus the municipal source, it was almost 78% provincial and 22% municipal. And that number has shifted to the 60-40 that you cited, and we certainly don't dispute that. We underwent 6 years of 2% cuts, which equated to $500,000 each year, and that funding was never recovered. We're seeing growth throughout the division, and consequently more students. So we're requiring more staff. We are a service industry, so a large percentage of our budget is devoted to staffing. With the advent of the provincial bargaining, we have no say in that. It is provincially decided, and so when the provincial bargaining is rolled out, it affected divisions in different ways. So they had an equalization portion that the government so that the tax burden would be more equally shared, and the amount that was allocated for that was in the realm of 16.4 million, but the actual cost was more in excess of 50 million. And so the burden then falls to the school divisions to make up the difference. A couple of other factors that are impacting us significantly are the needs of students. Our enrollment is increasing quite significantly with all the developments, necessitating adding more staff. But a good number of those students have additional needs requiring additional support. Clinical, whether it's psychology, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech therapy, social work. A lot of our children have complex needs, and so to support them in the schools, we're requiring more clinicians. In other provinces, the cost of those specialists falls to the Department of Health as opposed to education. In Manitoba, it falls to education. So although they are allied health professionals, they are still being paid by, through the education dollars. So, and just in response to, the beaches, we've had a lot of feedback, from, cottage owners. And, you know, as you pointed out, you don't have control over, the whole budget, with, and you did point out that the education tax rebate, you are eligible for your primary residence, and so for cottage owners, unfortunately, that isn't included. And I don't remember the exact title of the what they called it, but basically it was, if you have a cottage, that would suggest that you are able to pay more. And so, that we have nothing to do, the school division has absolutely nothing to do with that. That was a provincial mandate. And so, that is hard to hear, especially because many of the, cottage properties have been assessed and increased in value significantly. And so, I appreciate that is a hard pill to swallow, but again, the school division has absolutely nothing to do with it. That was mandated through the province. And so I say this not to make any excuses. It's a bit of a perfect storm, between, 6 years of -2%, with provincial bargaining, with the provincial government contributing less and less each year. That is our reality, and we are wanting to be fiscally responsible with the funds that we have. We like to think that we are also contributing to the community in terms of facility uses, whether it's our gyms or our buildings for evening programs or what have you, our soccer fields, our playgrounds, that we are contributing in that way as well. And so, thank you for humoring me, and I just wanted to lend our perspective. I don't dispute any of your numbers, but just to lend some perspective from the school division.
Thank you for that, Lena. Anybody else wish to come to the podium? Come forward. Just give us your name for the record, please.
Thank you, Norman. I'm Terry Kirkham from the south end of St. Clements. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It is my understanding that the RMF St. Clements, East St. Paul, and St. Andrews have embarked or are embarking on a water collaboration with regards to providing water services for all those particular areas. I have also learned that East St. Paul is embarking on a 500 lot development running off of Mowat Road that is going to require water services as well. Now, it was on the news today with regards to the concerns about that particular project. Whether that goes forward or not will obviously have a huge impact on the water requirements for not only East St. Paul, but also for residents here in St. Clements, as well as those in St. Andrews. Am I correct in assuming that that particular type of arrangement is moving forward?
That type of arrangement is moving forward.
So where are the water services going to come from?
From the water treatment plant in East Selkirk.
And is that just for the RMF St. Clements, or is that for East St. Paul? Are they on their own, and is St. Andrews on their own? Are these community wells, or are these expansions of aquifers? What do the water services going forward, what are they gonna look like?
The water that's being that the water treatment plant can accommodate. Capacity studies were completed, a certain amount of water connections were guaranteed as part of the, would be allocated, or not guaranteed, would be allocated towards East St. Paul and then eventually allocated towards St. Andrews. They're responsible for building all their infrastructure to connect into that. They pay towards us as a utility user. So the arm of St. Clements benefits from water that is abundant capacity that our water treatment plant can accommodate. The pipes that are going to be put into the ground are being put into the ground by the developer of the development in East St. Paul, which will then benefit all the south end of the arm of St. Clements, who can then connect into that pipeline without having to build the pipeline itself. There are many benefits. This was all part of support through the Manitoba Water Services Board, through engineering studies, and the Water Services Board, when they gave funding to do the water treatment plant upgrade here, one of their requirements is to always look at providing that in a regional context and a regional perspective. And that's how you get some of those grant dollars. That helped us to be able to expand a plant. And then we've taken into consideration the capacity to make sure that the amount of capacity that we need for the next 20 to 50 years is still available through our own aquifer.
And does that take into account if this new development in East St. Paul goes forward, like is there gonna be any complications that will arise from the amount of water that is going to be required in this collaboration between St. Andrews, St. Clements and East St. Paul?
This new development that East St. Paul was in a moratorium.
Correct, exactly.
Correct.
Yeah,
So they've been waiting to do an upgrade to their water treatment plant, which they still plan to do eventually.
okay,
In order to get away from the moratorium, they're able to connect to our sewer system
okay,
to begin. And we said initially we would look at connecting 300 of their connections and also some of the properties that are along Henderson Highway where the fields are already beginning. Our neighbors' fields are failing. It's an obligation as a neighbor, let alone as a municipality, to support that. And so they're going to be able to connect to our low pressure sewer system. And so that development will have some ability to connect. As part of the overall planning, the intention is for all three municipalities to continue to collaborate so that we can work and support each other. So when there's upgrades, we will build a proper loop system so that when you get water in these long distances, that there's a loop when if water stops happening, coming from one end, you can bring it from the other end. And so that is all part of the long range planning. This is as part of a 50-year plan. We took a look at population projections, what we thought would be logical population projections looking at Stats Canada populations, then did an analysis at a high level and said, what would the population be in these areas and could all that be determined? Engineering studies took a look at that. And so, yeah, all that is being taken into consideration. The aquifer testing has been done on a regular basis. We have a license to draw amount of water out of the wells in East Selkirk already. We are well below that limit. There was an impact on that aquifer for a period of time many years ago when Selkirk was also in the same aquifer. When Selkirk went and connected to a well field further north and created a well field there, that recharged the aquifer.
so in the grand scheme of things, is this going to mean that residents are going to have to convert from having their water supply provided by wells to some sort of metered system or some sort of water being brought in through this piping into your houses, and that will then end up being the source of our water as opposed to the wells that we have?
No, there is no plan to force existing
Okay,
lines. We already ran lines from here to Lockport. We didn't force anybody to connect in Lockport that didn't want to connect. We didn't force anybody along Henderson Highway that it came down to connect. None of that is part of the plan, and the people are accessible, but at least they have an option. If something happens to their well, now they have a water line right outside or near their property line.
So do you ever foresee this becoming an environmental issue with regards to, I'm on the low pressure system, I connected, okay? I chose to, but going forward, is there gonna be any environmental concerns that's going to force both sewer and water to be piped in that you can see in the future?
I'm not sure how I can answer that. I can't predict environmental concerns or what you're referring to as to what might happen. What I can tell you is that you're a low pressure sewer system. That means you no longer have a septic field, which means you're having less environmental concern. Now, if there's enough people around and in the Red River Valley, there's been challenges, as we all know. East Selkirk, what precipitated having the lagoon built in the first place was because East Selkirk was put into a boil water advisory, and the province stepped in to start doing that. What happened with the Lockport treatment plant? Same issue. Well, fields began to leach into the groundwater, and there was a restriction on any more septic fields in the Red River corridor. So all those things. So I can't predict what environmental issues may come up in the future, but what I can tell you is all of these things are being put in place to help mitigate against any of those types of environmental issues that may come up.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers.
You're more than welcome.
Okay, anybody else? Can you just come forward to the podium, please?
Hi there, my name is Donna Cheddar, I don't live far from here. I guess I just have some questions with regards to, how do I get information on what kind of plans the municipality is getting involved in for, low density housing, how it's going to affect the areas around here. So I was just wondering where I get that data, where I can find that information about what the long range plans are for this kind of stuff. What land's being set aside for that kind of stuff. We see it right next door here already where it's beginning. So I wanted to know what the long range plans are. How do I find that for municipality data? Including Red River planning, all that kind of stuff, right?
Certainly. I'll see if I can try to answer this. First of all, planning happens at 3 levels. The first is your development plan, and the development plan is required to be submitted to the province of Manitoba. Usually, the legislation requires it to be reviewed every 5 years, but sometimes it can take 10 to 15.
Yeah,
And so the development plan kind of lays out the structure of how development would be allowed, how much agricultural land would be allowed to be converted to residential land and so forth. So that's at the highest level. Next level below that is a secondary plan. So there is a secondary plan for the East Selkirk area. So that secondary plan, excuse me, I've got a bad cold. That secondary plan is published, it's available online through the Red River website, as well as you can,
Red River.
yeah, Red River Planning website, as well as you could probably get access to it on our website, but I can't remember whether we duplicate it or not, but it's definitely available there. That sets kind of the overall next level. So at the development level, it doesn't get into any kind of detail, it's just saying, these are supposed to be generally, not even zoning is the lowest level. So this is more land use, that we think this should be highly agricultural, this should be somewhat agriculture restricted, this could be settlement center. So this area has been identified as a settlement center in our planning aspects. And so a secondary plan comes in there, and then they'll look at identifying, oh, there's a major corridor that we want to see, and that was all through consultation with the community. And so it identified Coville Road as a major development corridor. People wanted to see more activity along it, have more, hopefully, type of development. And I think when you said low density, I think you meant high density.
High density, yeah.
Yeah. And so In that plan, it also says in the settlement centers, you can have higher density levels. And it says you can have higher density where there's serviced lands. First, you identify it as a settlement center, and then within the settlement center, if you have service lands, then you can have lower density. And then it says, what are those? And then you get to the lowest level, which would be the zoning. So the zoning says I can have service residential. So service residential in our community is considered a quarter acre lots, 10,000 square feet approximately that you can have on a lot. So that's what you have there. But it also says that you can have certain types of multifamily in this particular area. So those multifamily, but it says those multifamilies are conditional uses only. So which means you have to have a public hearing to determine the context. So that's how, hopefully I've answered your
Yeah,
question.
you have, and I guess my question becomes two seconds, is the gentleman was talking about water resources, et cetera. So is there a plan, the municipality of where the water is gonna be shooting out to? Like, is it going across the highway here, is it going, I'm wondering, is there long range plans available that we can look at as well to see what the plans are over the years?
For
right?
infrastructure?
Like, you say you've got a kind of 10-year plan or whatever, yeah.
For infrastructure plans,
Yeah.
yes, we are working on those right now. So some of it is pushed by development. And some of it is pushed by need. So as an example, when the water treatment plant was put in, it was because of need. Second was because of development need, and there was another need, was in Lockport, there was a real need to get water out there. So we took a look at how can we bring it there, and how could that, being another settlement center, built a connection to it. So we didn't look at connecting everybody along the way, but the option is there. It doesn't work the same way for low pressure sewer, unfortunately, because low pressure sewer, you do the main lines and then you have to do the laterals. And so we have, there was a plan put forward well before I was here, I think well before even the previous CAO that looked at doing some work in South St. Clements where a bunch of lateral lines were put in. And in order to put those lateral lines in, it was identified that those lands, it was considered a development approval was created also to say that these were general development areas. So general development meant that you could do lower dense or higher density in those because you're bringing in sewer and water, or sewer in that case. Now with water, there will be an opportunity and there'll be a level of planning that goes along with it. But sometimes it's spurred by development. So as a perfect example, the gentleman ahead of you that asked the questions about water, when East St. Paul had an opportunity of somebody to come in to put in so many hundreds of doors in their community, that developer said, I'll put the pipes in. As the Arm of St. Clements, we're going, okay, so we'll get paid for the usage of the water? And you're gonna put the pipes in so that all our residents benefit from it in the future? Why wouldn't we want to participate in something like that? Now that means when people connect to it, they have to pay their fair share because it doesn't come from general taxpayers.
Exactly.
So people in the north don't pay for infrastructure in the south.
Exactly, and I totally hear you, but I guess I'm looking at plans simply because we're a lot of these areas over here, reasonably new residential stuff that you spent $40,000 to put in fields and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking to find out what kind of detail is out there for long range planning, right? Would it affect me in 5 years, 10 years, those kind of things? So that's what I'm kind of looking at as well, to just find out what kind of plans we're looking at putting across Highway 59, running it south, running it north, those kind of things, and whether or not that is being talked about. That's kind of what
Only when there's some developers that are willing to sometimes come and front end the costs. The municipality doesn't generally go out unless they have, as I mentioned, a need of the residents themselves that it's been identified.
And there isn't at our end, but I guess I'm looking at, I have a little concern because we're seeing in these neighboring municipalities, the real drive for high density when around is 2 to 4 acre lots and stuff, and all of a sudden they're wanting to rezone and redo different things so that they can put all this high density housing. And you're seeing a lot of negativity going on with residents in St. Andrews, all these areas that are very unhappy with these kind of plans that are going on, because they say, we left the city to go to here, and now all of a sudden I got the city surrounding me, right? Like those kind of things. So that, I guess that's my concern for the Arm of St. Clements, to be cognizant of your residents, cognizant of areas, to make sure that you don't create the negativity, a massive negativity that is going on in East St. Paul, West St. Paul, Birds Hill, and all these areas in St. Andrews as well. That is really lots of negative stuff going on right now. in
Appreciate
terms of
that, and,
But yeah, so it just, to heads up, because me as a resident would be very vocal and would fight in order to ensure that we maintain what we came here in the first place for. You've already seen, there's been a little scuffles and stuff like that in the Arm of St. Clements. And I think that you really need to be cognizant of why people move out into areas as well. It's really, really important to pay attention. Yeah, I can see what you're doing in certain areas, but there's a lot of people not looking to want, having 44 and somewhere someone wants to put in however many lots and those kind of things, those are the kind of things that people now are starting to hear a little bit of negativity going on about going, hey, I've got a 4-acre lot. Why are they going to allow some developer to put in all these lots and stuff? So these are kind of things that we have to look at. Yes, we want growth, but we want organized, responsible growth that makes residents happy, not unhappy. So,
I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I might remind you.
Yeah.
That some of the people that moved here into the 2 acres and 4-acre lots are moving into larger lots that didn't have those.
Yeah.
And there had to be a development plan and a development changes. Just like if you look across the street here and the development there were a lot of people that were living here that were against that particular development and that are now very happy to have all the young families and the people living in the community, which has now rejuvenated East Selkirk's community with a number of people living here.
For
So
sure,
there's
but
a balance.
That's what I'm saying, there's a balance. You
I
can't
agree.
go and, like you say, put, as the gentleman was saying, 500 freaking lots in the middle of somewhere where it has 2 and 4-acre lots all around. Like crazy stuff like that, then gets anger.
I don't know, I don't know
Do you know
as
what I
to,
mean?
I
Like,
understand
those are
what
the
you're
things
saying.
that are going on right now in the RMs,
Yeah.
and they really have to be cognizant. Elections coming up, and it's always nice in election year where we see that it's a small mill rate goes on, because then who knows what the next few years bring after that. But in terms of that, it's nice. I'm glad to see, because this lady here has come and talked about the mill rate for the school system. I find it interesting that, we talk about, the kids moving in and there's need, but there's also affordability of the residents and how much they can afford to pay. So, and I think there's a little bit missing with regards to that, and I see it significantly in the school divisions. That in my day, and I know things change, et cetera, but you're saying, there's special needs, there's this, there's that. I think the trustees need to spend a lot more time fighting with the province about spending money on that kind of stuff for special needs, instead of expecting the resident to pay for all these EAs and all that kind of stuff that is going on and multiplying like rabbits in school divisions. So that, I really think that that's really important for trustees who pay attention, that just because I have a house that's $300,000 or $400,000 doesn't mean to say I'm retired. So I don't have a lot of money, but I spent a lot of years accumulating and getting to where I want to go. So I think in general, that's something that really has to be cognizant with, regardless of whether it's an RM or a school division, to pay attention to people and affordability. So that's all I have to say.
Just,
Thank you.
I wanna address one point.
Sure, right.
You made a point that, it's an election year and council has kept the budget and they're gonna, you made an inference that next year after the election, council is going to raise taxes. I just wanna make it clear, between the last 2 elections, council made a commitment, not this election, but the election before, of a 2% per year, and they kept their promise all those years. Last year, because of the significant increases that were coming from not only the reassessment, but also the school tax increase, council reduced their budget by taking a look at it. They have always tried to manage their budget, not by trying to take advantage of those scenarios, and they reduced it by 13%. So,
I was here
over-
last year.
over-
I was
over-
here.
over-
I know exactly, but I'm just saying.
over so many years,
Yeah, I
it has
know.
gone into the negative as opposed to the positive.
Yeah, but I get it, but at the same time, there is, slight raises and stuff, because assessed values come in, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
My taxes have gone up significantly, regardless of whether or not cuts and this and that and the other, simply because the assessed value by the province. That's just, that, you just see that just in general, and my taxes significantly went up because of the school division. Last year as well.
And provincial changes,
And
it wasn't
provincial
just the school
changes,
division.
totally, like, you know, they were going in the right track as far as I was concerned, and all of a sudden now it's like free for all. I looked and I saw, I mean, teachers, EAs, all that, are going to be higher, et cetera, et cetera, and that there's kids coming in, but at the same time, there needs to be cognizant that people just, it's not an endless pit of money. And that's just the way I feel about it, especially with school taxes. It's absolutely ridiculous. Thank you very much in terms of what you were doing for and trying to hold the line, et cetera, on what you're doing. But school divisions really have to be cognizant of what's going on and pay attention from affordability. Because eventually people are gonna get very, very angry. It's just, we're not in vulnerable spot. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Just a general comment, Madam Mayor. There's been a lot of good questions. Terry Kirkhan had a lot of good questions. I just want to let the folks know, and if many people rely on social media and innuendo and Facebook for information, if you're hearing anything that might not sound correct, please do call the RM. Please do call our CAO. He will answer all the questions you need answered. And I say that because there's a lot of speculation out there. There's a lot of speculation and pot stirring in the other RMs. So please, there's a lot of questions tonight, but I want to remind everybody, if you hear anything that doesn't sound right, instead of just believing it, call the RM, call our CAO, call the mayor, call the councillor, and we'll set you straight. Thank you.
Okay, was there anybody else who wanted to speak? Go ahead, Marion.
Just a quick comment about the water system.
Do you want to address the table
Okay,
here?
sorry.
And hopefully Mr.
Just a
Kirkham
comment
will
about
hear you.
the new water services that we have at Lockport now. Compared to the fact that we used to have wells. When we were on the well system, before this new water system was put through from St. Clements, we were running at 200 MPNs of coliforms and E. coli in 100 milliliters of water. We have now switched to the RM water system, and our readings now, and we're not having to be tested every single day like we were for a few years. We are now down to once a month, and both of those items, the coliforms and the E. coli, there are none detected in our water. It is absolutely fantastic. Our fixtures in our bathrooms are now white. You can buy a white t-shirt and it comes out of your laundry, white. And it's absolutely fantastic. We've been able to cut out buying bottled water. And it is the best thing that's happened to Lockport for a long time. And it's much appreciated. So if you're worried about the quality of the water coming through from the treatment plant here, don't be. It is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marion. Anybody else?
I have one question, doesn't pertain to anything tonight, I just want confirmation if you wouldn't mind. I understand that there is another public meeting tomorrow in these chambers, starting at 6 o'clock. Is that correct for the
Well, tomorrow,
conditional use?
tomorrow is our regular council meeting. It
Yeah.
begins at 2 o'clock.
Okay,
And our planning matters begin at 6.
6, okay.
And today was the open house for the financial plan. Tomorrow it'll be read for the first time. There won't be a detailed presentation like this.
Okay.
And then there will be a public hearing, an official public hearing for the financial plan. So today was an open house, which is a precursor to the
Right.
public hearing.
Okay. Yeah. But tomorrow's meeting is for conditional use application.
Well, there are quite a
More
few
than
planned
one.
items
So
on
which
there, but
application?
Henderson Highway,
I believe that one is on tomorrow night.
A specific application on Henderson Highway, a conditional use?
conditional use to turn an existing property that's already there into some sort of rehab facility.
Correct, yeah, that's coming tomorrow.
That is
Okay.
tomorrow.
All right.
Okay, anything else? Come forward if you would like. And put your name to the record,
My
please.
name's Wendell Gray, and I've lived on Manton Road since 1993. And I'm just wondering, the final third of Manton Road that isn't blacktopped, where's that going? I hear silence.
It is not on the 10-year plan
Okay,
to be added.
okay.
There was options made available,
I heard about the options. Those
and
really large options. Here's the thing, every year since, well, every year you gravel, followed by dust control. What does that cost the RM? With some blacktop, you won't have that expense every year. 2015, you prepped the final third of Nanton, because I was home with a knee replacement, so I was out there talking to Make Believe. And asked them, you guys are prepping this properly? When's the blacktop? The guys reply, the RM wants done right. So they want people traveling it, packing it down, and then they'll come to blacktop. That was 2015. Anything?
Well, why is it not on the plan? Why would you not finish what you started is what our question is. Like, why is it not significant to finish?
I can't speak to previous council decisions that happened
I know, but you have
over the
it
last.
in your plan
But
now.
you're here now.
In the current plans, it hasn't been identified.
It has been identified.
It hasn't been identified as a road, just like many, there's been requests throughout the RM to convert gravel roads.
Yeah, but you started, you got 2/3 of it done. Why would you not finish the last bit? And we do a lot of bicycling, and here you did, Donald Road. This, the whole
Donald Road from
Road, and
Anderson to
you didn't
Reback.
even have as many houses as we have in our section. It doesn't make any
Donald
sense.
Road was a commitment of council based on, there were hard surface roads that were converted back to gravel because they weren't able to maintain them.
Okay,
And so
but
that were there were several of those roads that were identified to be converted back because those property owners had been complaining that they had a hard surface road that they never received. So council's working within a certain budget and we take direction from council.
So why are we not on any kind of priority? I mean, you did 2/3 of the road and then you dropped down into the gravel. And now, this past winter, it's been so bad, and I know you guys have a certain amount of gravel, you have a certain amount of area in the ditch, you can throw the gravel. But the gravel was raked down to the bottom of the ditch, and we're talking, we have to get shovels to shovel out the gravel. It's adding insult to injury, it really is. And I'm not trying to cause havoc here, but we're getting really fed up, that's not been
I
good.
guess
Generally, the RM doesn't build new hard surface roads.
Well, you did,
Generally, the hard surface roads that have been replaced
right,
are being replaced. There's a hard surface road management plan to make sure that we have an asset management situation. We don't get back into the same situation that occurred previously where there was hard surface roads being built and then not maintained and it converted back to gravel or pulverized into gravel roads. Some of those have been converted. A 10-year plan was established so that there was a regular cycle of maintenance and management on top of those. Any new roads that are being built, as even in East Selkirk here, there's a road called Byers Road here that was still gravel. Developer came in to do the building, they were required to put in a hard surface road. Only half of that road is built. The other half is still gravel. So those individuals, the only option available is through a local improvement district, some way of funding that level, just like there's been requests being made from other subdivisions throughout the RM where people are asking for it. So we created a policy that was adopted by council that said, if there are roads, how will the RM make decisions that are fair, equitable, and appropriate? I can't speak for what happened in the past, why 2/3 or a third was left, and why how the 2/3 was funded. I think some of it was through development, I don't know for sure. But the point is that any new development is following through a policy and process. So there were some options made available where I think council even offered
So we're gonna
to
have
work
to
with.
add to our taxes every year for a certain amount of years. That was.
Similar to people
Yeah.
getting water and sewer and hard surface roads in other areas.
I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, my gripe is my taxes are the same as the guy a few doors down who has blacktop to his driveway. That's my gripe. Do I get a discount because I have gravel road on my taxes?
You don't get a discount if you're on a provincial road either.
Yeah, they're all paved.
No, not all provincial roads are all paved, but
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anybody else have anything? Go ahead, Harvey, come forward.
Good evening. So I am your school trustee in this ward, but I'm not gonna speak on that at all. So it's just about our tax dollars. So the taxpayer pays for everything, whether you get grants, I contribute to that, everybody else here contributes to that. We all know that. Everything is funded by the taxpayer. And that's the point. It doesn't matter what's D&D, education, no matter what, new subs, it's all the taxpayer pays for everything. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows, they're clear that we are paying for everything that goes on in Canada, for sure, anyways.
there's only one taxpayer.
Only one taxpayer, yeah. And I'm somewhat happy-ish. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything?
I'm Mike Reese, also from Zone Ward 2. I'd like to say it was a fantastic presentation and look forward to maybe some discussions about parts of it. I'm involved with the Grand Race Seniors and we've really appreciated the participation of the council and the municipality in supporting us in our efforts to make Grand Marais a little more fun and provide education and to get people to come on out and get out of the house and do things. So on behalf of our seniors, really appreciate it and look forward to more discussions because our recreation facilities in our area sure is in the state of it. And we hope that, and I'm sure many of the other municipal community centers are all struggling for volunteers, for funding and programs and such. And I hope that we can all work together to see about some ideas to make improvements, to make the East Beaches area that much more fun for everybody, both summer and winter, because there's you always see a big influx, especially out my front door on the lake, with all the thousands of snow shacks and ice fishers, and it's great to see all these people, and it would be nice if we could capture all that tourism dollars that people are spending to get out here and have some fun, if they would just stay overnight, and use our, involved. So thank you so much, and I hope to be in touch, or our president and others.
Thank you for that.
Yes, just so everyone knows, in order, for the last few years, council has made a commitment to communicate as much as possible about the taxes and as well as to the financial plan and how we provide it. You might have seen some of the material on our website. We've not only do this PowerPoint, the financial plan itself, but we also provide, excuse me, this will also be published soon, which is an overview of the financial plan to further put it into more plainer English than some of the other information, so that it gives you an opportunity to understand that and ask some questions later about the financial plan. On top of that, we will also try, because one of the things we've made a commitment towards is providing information in a multimedia format. And so not only are we providing it hard paper, electronically, but also trying to provide some videos so people can see, and somebody who may not want. So not only is this presentation today taped, but also we'll also be looking at generating some, what we've been doing is AI videos, and those are just taking our information just to make it much more easier to publish. for our residents.
I hope there's some, editing or checking before those get published.
They are checked and controlled. The text is followed very, very closely to the text that's already in the overview. So the intent is not to sell anything as more of a factual step-by-step information on it, because many people view information in many different ways. Perfect example, when we had to share information about the Baconia well. When we did the videos, more people watched it than the people looked at all the information we'd been sharing online for months and months.
You're saying the video was more popular than the written?
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Which is understandable because people are,
Visual.
yeah, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
And to keep costs at minimum, we went to AI videos. But we made sure everybody knew that these are not anything else other than, information to communicate with our residents. Please look at them when you get a chance.
Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, we have gone through the, oh,
I have a quick one.
sure.
I won't make it long. My name is David Fair. We live on Reedbeck and we have a business on Raleigh Road. We'd just like to get a little bit more involved in the community and see what's happening. I'm happy to hear that the water and sewer, if it's coming further south or whichever directions, that it's not gonna be enforced to hook up. We really enjoy our well and we have a fairly new septic field. I was just curious, do you know, like, we've heard talk about this big development going in, I believe it's on the west side of Reedbeck, kind of, right, from Mowat to coming north or something like that, something in that area. I've just been wondering, do you know what kind of infrastructure in terms of traffic they're planning on using? Because everything there is pretty small, like Reedbeck or even Henderson, like it would be.
I can't speak a lot to it because I don't know the details enough.
Okay.
But what I can tell you from what I understand is that the lands that are being looked at had always been identified as lands to be developed
Okay,
by the municipality some 15, 20 years ago.
okay,
And so those lands had never come forward for development purposes because there was a restriction of water and sewer capacity.
okay,
And so there were two major parts of the lands. One is that were lands that were as part of the development plan that needed to be amended, and the others were already zoned appropriately. And they just needed, they were already identified as settlement center or lands to be developed.
okay,
And so I think they've gone forward for rezoning of those lands and then a development plan amendment for the other lands.
okay.
So all that is looking at is about I'm thinking it's probably a 20-year.
Process.
Like, there's all this talk about how many lots are coming in, but we also have to be realistic how much development is actually occurring and what kind of a growth is actually occurring outside of Winnipeg and inside of Winnipeg.
Right,
And so you take all that, the Statistics Canada has helped evaluate that, so you look at what's happened in the past, gives you a better indication of what's gonna be happening in the future. They've taken a look at that, so most developers will usually plan for 20+ years once they start putting in the infrastructure. And as part of that, they will be required to do traffic studies,
yeah,
how the traffic will flow. I think if you're looking at the kind of development there, they'll be looking at schools that need to be built in the future. And none of those things happen overnight. So,
right. No, you just hear the talk about, I don't know, somebody said that, supposedly the size of Sage Creek or something, I'm like, holy, like, if we got that.
I saw that
That
Facebook
size,
post.
I don't know if there's any truth to that, but no matter what, it's a pretty big size. Sure they'll figure something out for infrastructure.
No, yeah, that's a good point. The size of Sage Creek exists lots of places in St. Clements with maybe 10 people sometimes.
like the size of the land.
Size of
I'm
land.
just saying in terms of people, like if you add, and I mean, that's something to keep in mind is it wouldn't happen, like it would happen over a pretty good period of time. But if you just add that amount of people, like I don't know, maybe they'd build a new big road or something, because I'm thinking Rebec, Henderson, anything going north-south, like it's small, right? Like it's, if you plump a development like that in there, but yeah, I guess that's more curious than anything else.
Speculation as to what it'll look like in Sage Creek. Sage Creek has significant amount of multifamily, 8, 10, 15 stories. I don't think that that's the kind, like it's hard to predict what you can, it's like taking, people said Waverly West was the size of Brandon coming in. Waverly West got built.
Okay.
Traffic goes through Waverly West all the time.
Yeah.
And it's almost developed, and it happened over 15, 20 years now. And slowly everything had to be accommodated to accommodate that kind of growth. Now, what you see in Waverly West and Sage Creek doesn't mean that that's exactly what you're gonna see in St. Paul or St. Clements. Like, in St. Clements, you'll see more related to our community. Some people feel that the quarter-acre lots, the 10,000 square feet that are right across the street from here, that are built, are too small, and some people feel they're too big. But they fit in our community. We needed seniors housing, we needed multifamily housing in this community. We did a study, we looked at people were getting older and there was nowhere to live in our community as part of that. So we did an RFP, took a piece of land that belonged to the RM and sold it. And sold it to allow somebody to bring in that type of multifamily dwellings here that will be made available to people. So some people that are living here on 1 acre, 4 acre lots right inside East Selkirk here are getting older. They were identifying. It was identified in the statistics with Selkirk as well as here that they needed somewhere to live, and so these were options being created. There are some other options, so the variety of housing at specific areas is something that we need to take into consideration to build a community.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like I know a lot of people oppose development in a lot of ways. I can understand, like they've lived in this for 50 years and they don't want to change or whatever, but I think development has to happen. That's just like, as population grows, as Canada grows, like we need progress, we need development. Like you said before, you want to do it in balance, not piss everybody off, but at the same time, it's like it's inevitable. I'm just curious how how some of these things would work, but thank you for your time, appreciate it.
I'll give you one last example, if you don't mind, Madam Mayor. I'll give you one last example, is the example what's happening in East Selkirk. If it wasn't for some of the development that's happening here, the commercial lands that were identified to be commercial lands through the secondary plan and all that planning were right on the corner here of Highway 59 and Colville. And those lands, or Kitson at that point, those lands, there was nobody buying that commercial land because the companies that are looking at doing that kind of development are counting the number of smokestacks so that they can get the number of people coming to utilize it.
Right.
When we started seeing the level of density growth here, which is what was identified with the community, now we're getting a Tim Hortons there. We're getting a gas station right here.
Tim Hortons here?
Tim Hortons here, a gas station
Start
here.
building or?
A grocery store, a type of a strip mall, a little restaurant and a bar. Those, and possibly a car wash. He's debating on the car wash because of the cost of water.
Has the build started for Tim Hortons or just in the planning phases?
Pardon?
For Tim Hortons?
Starting this year.
This year, he should be going in the ground within months.
Wow.
So digging up the gas station over there.
I wouldn't do that, that's.
Well, I don't know, I like Tim Hortons, I don't mind.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that were in East Selkirk that would say, you know, I wanted a grocery store to go to because the only way if I could get from here across to Selkirk was go all the way to Highway 4 or all the way down to Highway 44. And so those are the things that build the community as this community begins to grow.
Well,
The mayor can tell you what she feels about it. She's been here her entire life.
I've been here my entire life and I think everything that's going on here is absolutely great.
Well, it's not such responsible, that's my bottom line.
Well,
It's
I'll just
Yeah.
finish if you don't mind. I guess I grew up here and I remember a time when we had 3 grocery stores and we had a car wash and all that is gone now. And it's just starting to come back. Like I say, I've lived here all my life. I love it. I don't want to go anywhere else. And I think that everything that has happened in the area over the last few years is absolutely wonderful. We're creating something for people to stay in the community, and that's very important to me. Yeah. Okay, anything further anybody would like to add? Last comment.
Interesting,
Oh,
interesting aspect. That, land that's being developed in East St. Paul was, on the drawing board many, many years ago with regards to development. The unfortunate part about it was the RM of East St. Paul wanted 2 lots per acre. And the developer that I knew could not financially accommodate that. He needed 3 lots per acre. And so the development at that particular stage in time just fell apart. Now all of a sudden, they're putting in more high density housing in that development in order to get that 500 lots in place.
What is the high density housing? 4 lots per acre?
I'm not sure what it is, but
4 lots is right here.
when you look at the square footage of the lots now, they're half-acre lots or less, depending on the type of housing that's gonna go in there. So it's gonna be multi housing development. You're gonna have condos, you're gonna have up and down 2 stories, you're gonna have single.
These are quarter acre lots.
Yeah,
right
that's
here.
right, yeah.
Drive through on your way out.
And if you drive through there, take a look and see if that feels the same way that Sage Creek feels or anything else.
It doesn't.
Okay, on today's CTV news, the local news, it did say that the developer was Waterside Development Corporation.
Yeah.
That is taking care of that proposed thing. It's 248 acres and they're looking at 400. They didn't quite mention 500, but I mean, if you just do the math, if it was 500, there'd be like 2 families per acre. So that's not
It's
like
half acre lots, yeah.
yeah, it's
Those
not
are
like
huge.
whatever. No, so that's reasonable and you know, the province is making taxes out of this as well, aren't they? So they should be helping out with footing the bill for expanding Henderson, Rebec, all the associated infrastructure that's gonna move those 400 families to work and back or to the grocery store, to wherever. And,
And developers don't build something that no one's gonna buy.
exactly.
And also, there are, a developer came forward and asked for 4 acre lots in, out by Highway 44, and then they haven't been able to sell them. Because most people want smaller than that, and that's unfortunate. The other side of this is density is not measured by how many single family dwellings. It's a mix of housing. In this location here, on 2 acres, we have 56 units. So 56 on 2 acres. Now, that's good for the municipality, very little road to clear. And still get taxes for 56 for all the residents to share.
As long as they all don't try to drive out at once.
I don't think they usually do. And traffic can usually handle that, but well.
Okay, I believe Councillor Strang had something she wanted to share, so go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank the Ward Selkirk School Division on their explanation this evening, and I want to thank them always for coming out to our open houses all the time. All 3 school divisions that we have in our municipality are always invited, and you're the only ones that show up, so thank you.
Glad to do it. You can read about it.
Well, no, it's a good way for our residents to come and visit the booth, and ask questions or the comments and that, yeah, our other 2 school divisions never show up, so thank you.
Yeah, it just goes, it's just going.
Okay, I guess at this point in time, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening, and I hope everybody learned a little bit, and I think we learned a little bit too, so thank you all very much, and with that, I will say that our meeting is now adjourned, so thank you for coming out.
Thank you.